Another year has come and gone, and I've read a lot of comics. Let's talk about the best comics of 2025. We're going to start with some honorable mentions. These are titles that haven't completed an entire arc of their story or were right outside of the best, but they're absolutely worthy and deserving of recognition. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, Rite of Spring. I was fearful that writer Patrick Horvath might not have a compelling follow up to the hit that was the first installment of the story, but not only did he have that story, but it might actually even be better than the predecessor. Absolute Martian Manhunter. What happens when a detective is overtaken by an extra dimensional being who attempts to help in combating negativity, hate, and existential dread? Dennis Camp and Javier Rodriguez are tackling that very idea through a thoughtfully crafted narrative and arguably some of the best use of colors in comics this year. Conan the Barbarian. Wrap your arms around this book like Shuma Gorath would wrap its tentacles around the Hyborian hero. Zub continues to show his love and dedication to this character each and every issue, and make sure you check out issue number 25 in particular, as it's one of the best single issue experiences you'll have in 2025. Absolute Superman. A soft spoken, unsure Kal-El fights for the working class to ensure that the outcome of Krypton will never be replicated. Aaron is quietly putting out one of the best Absolute Universe books with a core of characters that are really more different than any other Absolute property that's being put out. And finally, Space Ghost. I was originally trepidatious over reading Space Ghost, having no background with the character or the lore. I was pleasantly surprised to see a well-paced, well-written narrative that honors legacy in a really accessible way while forging a new path that is mature, compelling, and incredibly entertaining. Okay, on to our best comics of 2025. Starting with number 20, Superman, the Kryptonite Spectrum. What happens when the team behind the existential horror anthology Ice Cream Man sets their sights on the Man of Steel? You get Superman, the Kryptonite Spectrum, a DC Black Label book that is equal parts Silver Age absurdity and profound meditation on identity, making it one of the most inventive and delightful comics of 2025. W. Maxwell Prince brings his unique charm and tone to a character who rarely gets to be this introspective or whimsical. Prince is famous for his experimental storytelling, and here he uses the concept of 4 new varieties of kryptonite to push Superman to his formal and emotional limits. This isn't a horror story, but it carries the same boundary-pushing, genre-fluid spirit as his indie work. For example, when purple kryptonite scrambles Superman's perception of time, Prince's structure of the comic itself is like a jigsaw puzzle of non-linear panels, forcing the reader to share in Superman's confusion. He channels the best of Grant Morrison's quirky all-star Superman era, blending the super science and high adventure with a surprising amount of heart. Prince explores the idea that the shard of his broken home world is literally the revealing the fault lines in Superman's soul, making a decidedly wacky concept feel deeply grounded in human trauma. Translating this surreal, heartfelt vision is artist Martin Morazzo. Morazzo's style, known for its detail and expressive form, is very much like that of Frank Whiteley, making him the perfect visual anchor for any kind of art pop superhero storytelling. Morazzo delivers clean, detailed line work and distinctive character forms reminiscent of Quiley's precise, slightly exaggerated aesthetic. This gives the book a foundational sense of classic superheroism, even when the plot goes completely off the rails. Whether Superman is fighting a giant monster or simply having a sharply written debate with Batman at the Fortress of Solitude, Morazzo's detail-rich style thrives. The bright, sometimes almost serenely uncanny quality of his forms, combined with Chris O'Halloran's vibrant colors, create a world that is visually inviting, structurally sound, and perfectly suited for the grand yet strange concepts Prince is throwing at the Man of Steel. Number 19, Absolute Wonder Woman. Forget everything you know about Paradise Island. Absolute Wonder Woman is the definitive reinvention of Diana for a new, darker universe. From the powerhouse team of writer Kelly Thompson and artist Hayden Sherman, this book takes an already iconic hero and proves that goodness can bloom even in the soil of literal hell. Kelly Thompson takes on the biggest challenge of the DC Absolute Universe. How do you make an alternate Wonder Woman feel new while keeping her pure and heroic? Her solution is brilliant. She was raised in hell by the outlaw witch Circe. This complete upheaval of Diana's origin, swapping the utopian Themyscira for the inferno of the underworld, is a genius move. It reframes Diana's iconic compassion as an inherent, unshakable virtue, proving she is pure of heart despite her circumstances. Thompson writes Diana as a genuine beacon of hope and kindness, even as she wields dark magic, wears horns, and rides an undead Pegasus. Her journey is about fighting the injustice done to her and her people, making her mission intensely personal and fiercely compassionate. Diana is a force for good, not because she was taught peace, but because she was forged by love in a place defined by hate. The story's epic mythological scale is visually defined by the art of Hayden Sherman. Their work just doesn't depict the story, it establishes the size and scope of the world and all its inhabitants in a groundbreaking way. Sherman consciously designed this Diana to be tall, imposing, and powerful, establishing her as the tallest person in the room to visually reinforce her Amazonian lineage and power. This emphasis on scale is key to the monster fights. Whether Diana is slicing apart enormous harbingers or facing a kaiju-like tetracide, the sense of colossal danger is visceral. Furthermore, the design work is impeccable. The clean metal aesthetic of Diana's costume, the massive sword, and the literal skeletal Pegasus all perfectly sell the unique, twisted mythology of this version of hell. Sherman's dynamic art makes the world feel vast, dangerous, and incredibly imaginative. Absolute Wonder Woman is easily one of the strongest books in DC's new line, proving the fresh take on an established icon could be both radical and reverent. Kelly Thompson writes a pure hero raised in the darkness, and Hayden Sherman delivers cinematic, epic visuals that redefine the Amazonian mythos. Number 18, Geiger. In a nuclear wasteland where mutated monsters and tyrannical kings rule, one man literally glows with the weight of the impossible sacrifice. Geiger, from the legendary team of Geoff Johns and Gary Frank, isn't just a post-apocalyptic blockbuster, it's a profound emotional journey about a man walled off from humanity who is slowly learning to reconnect. Writer Geoff Johns brings his signature touch for blending superhero grandeur with a deep human emotion. The central figure, Tariq Geiger, is a man walled off, physically mutated by radiation and mentally isolated by the trauma of being locked out of his family's bunker during the war. His quest begins as a singular, desperate mission for a cure, driving him to be unpredictable and violent. However, as the story progresses, it dives deeply into the themes of companionship. Through his reluctant protection of two orphans and his strange alliance with characters like Barney, the two-headed wolf, and Nate, the nuclear knight, Geiger is slowly forced to confront the values of connection again. Johns masterfully shows Tariq's reluctance to let people in, juxtaposed with the need for fellowship in this broken world. The story brilliantly uses the monstrous, chaotic setting to highlight the most fragile and human parts of Geiger, delivering a narrative that is heavy metal action with genuine, aching heart. A comic with this much emotion and destructive power requires an artist at the caliber of Gary Frank. His artwork is defined by its heavily rendered and highly detailed realism, making the desolate world of Geiger feel utterly believable. Frank, along with colorist Brand Anderson, creates a world-building splendor. Each panel, whether it's a vast, scarred Nevada desert or a claustrophobic confrontation in a suburban ruin, is meticulously textured. Frank's ability to render expressive faces is key to the emotional stakes. You feel the anguish and rage on Tariq's face and the desperation of the survivors. This extreme level of detail extends to the action, making Geiger's explosive, radioactive power look both terrifying and awesome. This is no rush-to-print job. The care in every line ensures that the dramatic weight of John's story is fully realized, providing an epic, cinematic feel that rivals Frank's best work on Doomsday Clock or Superman. Geiger is the perfect post-apocalyptic comic. It's got giant mutated ants, power-armored knights, and a guy who can literally glow, but at its heart, it's about the father's sacrifice and his slow, painful path back to humanity. Jeff Johns and Gary Frank are operating at their absolute best, creating a universe that's both terrifying and deeply moving. Number 17, Universal Monsters, The Invisible Man. The Universal Monsters are icons, but only one of them starts their journey completely stripped of their humanity. Universal Monsters, The Invisible Man is a chilling reinvention that understands that fundamental horror of the character brought to life by writer James Tynion and artist Danny. James Tynion is a master of modern horror and suspense, and his narrative hook here is brilliant. Unlike properties like Dracula or Frankenstein, where the monster often evolves from a person, The Invisible Man, Dr. Jack Griffin, starts as the monster. Tynion leans entirely into this thought of the narrative. Jack's obsession burns away his sanity, leaving behind pure, uninhibited narcissism and rage. Tynion's story is a psychological spiral, examining the horrible freedom and absolute power that invisibility grants a man already teetering on the edge. The narrative isn't about becoming a monster, it's about the monster unleashing itself upon the world, allowing Tynion to explore themes of unchecked male privilege, paranoia, and the seductive nature of absolute anonymity. It's a terrifying modern deconstruction of a classic villain. The story's existential horror is visually defined by the striking artwork of Danny. Her minimalistic art approach that uses negative space brilliantly is the perfect visual engine for a story about emptiness and absence. Danny's style is characterized by heavy inks, stark contrast, and the intentional lack of clutter. This is essential for rendering characters who by nature are not there. Danny uses negative space not just as the background, but as a dynamic storytelling tool, emphasizing the terrible void where Jack should be. When the Invisible Man is visible, it's using the stark, blinding white of the color work on this book that visualizes exactly how menacing this character can truly be. Universal Monsters, The Invisible Man is a chilling success. James Tynion dissects the character's intrinsic horror, and Danny provides a masterclass in utilizing minimalism and negative space to maximize suspense. Number 16, The Seasons. Some comics feel like a comforting fairy tale, weaving big ideas into a deceptively simple journey. The Seasons is that book, a wonderfully imaginative departure for its veteran creators, writer Rick Remender and artist Paul Azaceta. Get ready for a story that's as beautiful as it is unexpectedly fast-paced. If you know Rick Remender from his work on the cerebral sci-fi like Fear Agent, or the dark family drama like Deadly Class, then you know he often deals in gritty, high-stakes trauma. But with The Seasons, he takes a different approach, one that is utterly playful and whimsical. The series is a delightful surprise, showcasing Remender's range by telling a sprawling, inventive fantasy story centered around 4 young siblings who were separated but brought back together in a search for their parents and trying to stop a circus who could be taking over the world. It's a true high fantasy adventure, but told with light, earnest touch and a focus on the wonder and imagination. Remender proves that he can trade in his usual darkness for dazzling creativity, making a big, sprawling narrative feel emotionally resonant and full of hopeful discovery. The visual soul of this charming world is the artwork of Paul Azaceta. If you're familiar with his past work, you might recognize his style, but here he leans into a loose and minimalistic aesthetic that is absolutely perfect for the story. Azaceta's art is characterized by its fluid, sketchy lines and uncluttered backgrounds. This apparent simplicity is deceptive as it makes the world feel both immediately accessible and incredibly magical. Most importantly, his style, combined with his expert paneling, makes the narrative incredibly fast-paced and emotive. The minimalism strips away any unnecessary detail, forcing the readers to focus on the characters' faces and the actions. As the siblings move from world to world, Azaceta's work perfectly captures the urgency of this quest and the genuine fear and wonder in their expressions, allowing the fantastical to zip by without ever losing the emotional thread that Remender masterfully provides. The Seasons is a comic equivalent of a breath of fresh air. It's Rick Remender showing off his mastery of the genre, and Paul Azaceta delivering a surprisingly fast-paced, emotive visual adventure that will delight readers for all ages. Number 15, Redcoat. History is often told by the victors, but what about the immortal soldier who was there for all of it? Redcoat is the audacious, thrilling ride through American history from master storyteller Jeff Johns and the consistently spectacular art of Brian Hitch. Jeff Johns is a modern legend known for revitalizing entire universes. With Redcoat, he takes his unparalleled ability to craft epic narratives and applies it to American history, but with a wonderfully playful and action-packed twist. The premise is simple but brilliant. A British soldier, cursed with immortality, finds himself at every pivotal moment in America's past, usually on the wrong side of history. Johns doesn't chronicle the event, he infuses them with his signature blend of larger-than-life action and known humor. He reimagines iconic historical moments, like the Battle of Gettysburg or the exploration of the American West, as a bombastic, visceral comic book set piece. Yet through the immortal Redcoat's cynical, world-weary eyes, these grand events become incredibly personal and often darkly funny. Johns successfully injects the kind of high-stakes character-driven storytelling he brings to superheroes into the historical narrative, making history feel vibrant, dangerous, and incredibly entertaining. To make these historical spectacles truly explode off the page, you need an artist with a vision as grand as the story, and that's where Brian Hitch comes in. Hitch's artwork is a testament to the consistency and reliability, delivering on the premise of the widescreen comic every single time. Known for his epic, detailed, and cinematic style on the books like The Authority and The Ultimates, Hitch perfectly captures the grandeur and grit of John's historical narrative. His panel work is dynamic, his character design is expressive, and his attention to historical detail is impeccable. In a world where comic artists sometimes struggle with deadlines or consistency, Hitch is a rock-solid professional. His ability to deliver page after page of high-fidelity, meticulously rendered art that maintains the book's epic scope and intense action is a marvel. Every explosion, every bullet fired, every horse charge feels like it could jump off the page and onto the movie screen. Redcoat is a thrilling, genre-defying series that proves that history can be as exciting as any superhero saga. Number 14, Two-Face. We've seen Harvey Dent struggle with his dual nature for decades, but no book has dared to stage the conflict quite like this. Two-Face is a brilliant, mind-bending deep dive into the fractured psyche of Gotham's most tortured villain, and it's a required read for 2025. Christian Ward takes the driver's seat here and crafts a story that's not unlike Fight Club for Harvey Dent's dueling personas. The premise is genius. After years of conflict, good Harvey Dent has locked bad Harvey away into the mind prison and returns to the courtroom, now working as the underground defense attorney for the secretive White Church. The twist is the internal conflict. Just like the narrative in Fight Club finds his suppressed dark side running wild, Harvey discovers his attempt at control are being sabotaged by an unknown shadow hand, which turns out to be himself. Ward uses this premise to stage an actual courtroom trial against himself, putting his two halves, the lawyer and the killer, in opposition. This allows Ward to explore the complexities of identity, morality, and recovery from trauma, asking, can you lie, kill, and double deal your way back from being good? It's a gripping, high-concept, psychological procedural that is a spectacular and defining take on the character. The genius of Ward's split-personality script is made manifest by the incredible artwork by Fabio Veras and colorist Ivan Placencia. The marriage of Veras' artwork and the colors is what make these pages so striking. Veras delivers a highly detailed style, but it's in the internal sequences that the art truly shines. When Harvey retreats into the mind to deal with his inner war, the visuals become surreal and vibrant. The dramatic shifts in color and the detailed background designs are not just visually appealing, they're critical storytelling tools reflecting Harvey's unstable mental health and the terrifying, chaotic nature of not having full control over your own body and mind. It's a gorgeous, unsettling approach that perfectly externalizes Harvey's inner turmoil. Two-Face is the best kind of villain story, one that humanizes the antagonist while holding him accountable. Christian Ward gives us a psychological thriller in the vein of Fight Club, and Fabio Veras and the color team give us one of the most visually inventive comics in Gotham's history. Number 13, Batman Dark Patterns. Gotham City has always been a place where horror and crime intertwine. Batman Dark Patterns strips the Dark Knight down to his detective core, delivering a series of haunting mysteries that feels instantly classic. This is the Dark Knight detective at his most raw and compelling, thanks to the singular team of writers Dan Waters and artist Hayden Sherman. Dan Waters is known for his work on cosmic and psychological horror, and he brings that twisted sensibility to the heart of Gotham. Set during the early years of Batman's career, when he's still establishing himself and working with a young Lieutenant Gordon, Waters crafts a narrative steeped in gothic horror and street level pulp. He views Batman as a dweller of the shadows of Gotham's towering, dilapidated spires, and the city itself as a character. A hostile place of magicians, mad scientists, and superstitious, cowardly criminals. Waters focuses on self-contained, gruesome mysteries that are born from Gotham's collective trauma, forcing Batman to act as a wounded healer. This is a Batman who makes mistakes, who is challenged, and who relies on wits and sheer will, not endless gadgets. By tapping into the pulp gothic roots of the character, Water makes this early years story feel both familiar, echoing the Long Halloween, and incredibly fresh. The story's haunting psychological tone is amplified tenfold by the revolutionary Hayden Sherman. While Sherman's visual style has range, here they deliver incredible page layouts that redefine how a Batman comic can look. Sherman doesn't settle for traditional panel grids. Instead, they use the full comic page as a canvas, employing spiraling panels, diagonal slashes, and complex, inventive compositions that perfectly convey disorientation and chaos. For instance, a body falling multiple stories is depicted in a single dynamic page as a character's fear is visualized by arranging panels in the silhouette, creating a visceral sense of dread and psychological stress. Sherman's work is often compared to groundbreaking artists like G.H. Williams III for its boundary-pushing use of the comic form. The layouts are not gimmicks. They're a vital storytelling tool that keeps the action kinetic and makes the internal life of the characters, especially Batman's grim determination, feel immediate and powerfully emotive. Batman Dark Patterns is a triumph for the Dark Knight. Dan Waters gives us the mystery-focused gothic Batman fans have been craving, and Hayden Sherman provides a visually arresting, technically masterful aesthetic that is unmatched on the stands. Number 12, The Moon is Following Us. Daniel Warren Johnson is an Eisner-winning genius known for his signature blend of heavy metal bombast and overwhelming empathy. Here, as the primary writer, he maintains his insane ability to pull on the heartstrings no matter what the circumstances are. And those circumstances, they're this. Sam and Duncan's 6-year-old daughter Penny is trapped in a dream-induced coma by an evil force. This setup, parents desperately fighting for their child, is every parent's worst fear, and Johnson taps into that raw, palpable grief and desperation perfectly. He delivers moments that hit with the quiet devastation. A few pages of a family enjoying a simple day completely wordless, followed by the terrifying realization of their loss. Whether they're flying a missile-equipped helicopter or having a simple heartbroken conversation, the emotional stakes are always at the highest, making the fantasy war feel deeply intimate and personal. To visually realize the concept that blends everyday anxiety with a child's dream world, you need an artist who excels at the bizarre, and that's Riley Rossmo. While Rossmo has an extensive bibliography, this story leans into his artistic abilities better than most recent books he's been on. Rossmo has a natural, bombastic, energetic style. His figures are often exaggerated, his line work fluid, and his designs are wonderfully unconventional. In The Moon is Following Us, his distinct aesthetic perfectly complements the subject matter. The dream realm, populated by Penny's reimagined toys, demand a vibrant, unbridled imagination that his style effortlessly provides. His ability to create terrifying yet strangely whimsical monsters and landscapes allow the world of the subconscious to feel both unique and intensely dangerous. His collaboration with Johnson, even splitting the art duties between the real and dream world, allow Rossmo to fully unleash his unique character design and kinetic action without being constrained by conventional superhero realism. The Moon is Following Us brings this heartbreak and horsepower quest to an unforgettable conclusion. It's a testament to the power of the collaboration, with Johnson delivering the emotional fire and Rossmo providing the electrifying, imaginative visual canvas. Number 11, We're Taking Everyone Down With Us. What happens when a 13-year-old girl, the daughter of a mad scientist, loses her dad to the world's greatest spy? She gets a robot bodyguard and decides it's time to overthrow the world order. We're taking everyone down with us as a brilliant blend of sci-fi espionage, dark comedy, and non-stop action from writer Matthew Rosenberg and artist Stefano Landini. Rosenberg is known for interjecting dark humor and genuine heart into intense scenarios, and he brings that to bear here. His script is packed with quippy dialogue and humor while simultaneously ramping up a ton of action. The core of this book is a fractious and funny relationship between the precocious Annalise and her father's robotic bodyguard, who may or may not contain her dad's consciousness. Rosenberg's dialogue is sharp and naturalistic, making even the awkward robot interactions hilarious. The humor, often a brilliant mix of Archer and Venture Brothers, flows effortlessly into the suspense. He uses the comedic timing to quickly establish characters and relationships before launching them into thrilling spy drama. The plot escalates wildly, throwing Annalise from a confined life on her father's island into the global conflict involving super spies, evil empires, moral conundrums, all the while keeping the reader completely engaged with this chaotic fun. Artist Stefano Landini grounds their genre mashup with a detailed and action-ready artwork style that perfectly matches the book's tone. Landini's visuals have a retro, almost 70s sci-fi aesthetic, which is reinforced by the stark, often bold color palettes. He excels at the espionage elements, drawing sharply dressed spies in futuristic tech with tight, artistic execution. But his greatest strength here is the action. He ensures the book's pacing is excellent, delivering visceral and pulse-pounding action that balances the comedy and the drama. Whether he's drawing an intense action chase sequence or a quiet, tender moment between Annalise and her father, Landini's work is crucial to selling the book's complex mix of humor and heart. We're taking everyone down with us as a delightful, off-the-wall book that manages to blend family tragedy, global domination, and genuinely funny dialogue into a cohesive, unmissable comic. Number 10, Green Arrow. If you thought Green Arrow was just a rich guy with a bow and arrow, you haven't read the current era of the Emerald Archer. The Freshwater Killer and Crimson Sands have instantly cemented this run as one of the best in decades, thanks to the writer who gets the character to his core and an artist who delivers beyond expectation. Chris Condon, famous for his noir crime series That Texas Blood, takes the keys to Star City and immediately delivers Oliver Queen back to his roots. Condon's take honors the history of character while making the book feel urgently fresh. He throws out the cosmic adventuring and family reunions of previous runs and reestablishes Green Arrow as the street-level social justice warrior first defined by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams in the 1970s. The core of this story isn't defeating a supervillain, it's confronting systemic injustices, whether it's an ecological disaster caused by corporate greed or a crisis of addiction and power abuse. This focus isn't just nostalgia. By applying those classic social themes to modern anxieties, Condon ensures that Oliver Queen's self-righteous rage and deep-seated empathy remain powerful and perfectly relevant today. This commitment to a down-to-earth, gritty approach is the foundation, and it's the perfect canvas for a truly underrated artist, Montos. Montos is a phenomenal sequential artist who delivers the highly rendered pages that give Star City a heavy, neo-noir atmosphere. His style is a dream fit for Condon's crime-focused scripts. He uses stark line work and incredible detail in shadows and environment, making every scene, from an interrogation room to a rain-soaked alley, feel oppressive and real. And here's the inside track. Montos is a workhorse known in the industry for being both technically brilliant and a total professional. This consistent high-quality, high-rendered art delivered on time is a rare and precious thing, and it allows Condon's slow-burn storytelling to breathe without ever missing a beat. The work Montos is doing here is world-class, delivering a unified, atmospheric vision for Green Arrow that deserves far more recognition. If you want a superhero comic that respects the past while also providing a gripping, relevant crime story, then you have to read this run. Number 9, Batman and Robin, Year 1. This is the book that reminds us why the dynamic duo works, and why their partnership is the emotional core to the Bat mythos. It is Batman and Robin Year 1 by the reunited, acclaimed team of Mark Waid and Chris Samnee. Mark Waid is a master of superhero history, but this proves that he's a master of superhero heart. He stated up front that this isn't just a Batman and Robin story, it's a Bruce and Dick story. That focus makes all the difference. Wade crafts a narrative that is entirely about two traumatized individuals learning to become a father and son. Batman is already a seasoned crime fighter, but Bruce Wayne is utterly unprepared to be a parent. The story beautifully captures his anxieties, his attempts to be a mentor while struggling to be a father, and his quiet realization that he has no role model for this. Contrasting this with Dick Grayson's youthful exuberance, he's impulsive, energetic, and brings a desperately needed light to Bruce's dark world. Their arguments, their missteps in the field, and their genuine affection all feel real, turning what could be a simple origin retread into a defining, heartfelt story about the formulation of the most important relationship in Gotham. The genius of Mark Waid's script is perfectly matched by the visual storytelling of Chris Samnee, an artist who truly understands how to make a comic move. Samnee's style is deceptively clean, utilizing an almost cartoonist precision that gives the characters incredible weight and motion. He has a gift for sequential clarity. Every punch, every flip, and every rooftop chase flows with an energy that harkens back to the best of the Silver and Bronze Age comics, but with a modern polish. Look at the way he draws Robin. Grayson's movements are acrobatic and feel genuinely informed by his circus background. Not a small adult, but a highly skilled, exuberant child. This visual contrast, the heavy, brooding shadows of Batman next to the bright, expressive figures of Robin, is a storytelling tool in itself. Samnee's art makes the action sing and the emotions land with unmistakable, powerful clarity. This is pure, unadulterated superhero storytelling. Batman and Robin Year One is essential reading. It's the rare story that doesn't just retell an origin, it defines it, it deepens it, and it establishes the gold standard of the Bruce and Dick dynamic. Number 8, The Sacrificers. Some stories dare to confront the deepest, darkest aspects of existence, asking what it truly means to sacrifice and what price is paid for the gilded cage. The Sacrificers is that story, a beautiful, brutal, and profoundly moving epic from writer Rick Remender and artist Max Fiumara. The story delves even deeper into its complex, heartbreaking world. Remender is at his absolute best when he's exploring the dark corners of the human condition, and in The Sacrificers, he delivers a cast of deeply nuanced characters that will haunt you long after you turn to the last page. The premise is chilling. A society of gods live in lavish splendor, maintained by the literal sacrifice of a caste of beings known as the Sacrificers. Remender's genius lies in giving voice to all of them. He doesn't just present heroes and villains, he crafts characters who are products of their oppressive systems. Even the gods are shown to be vulnerable, trapped in a cycle they don't know how to break, while the Sacrificers themselves are given incredibly rich inner lives, brimming with hope, despair, and instinct for survival. This is the masterful exploration of class, privilege, rebellion, filled with moral ambiguity, and makes every character feel profound and real and tragic. To bring this profound, often heartbreaking narrative to life, you need an artist who can convey immense emotion and brutal beauty, and Max Fiumara delivers with intense, emotive artwork. Fiumara's style is a perfect fit for Remender's dark fantasy. His line work is dynamic and raw, giving the gods a regal yet fragile appearance and the Sacrificers a heartbreaking vulnerability. He excels at facial expressions and body language, making the silent moments of pain, hope, or defiance incredibly powerful. Whether it's the quiet despair in Seluna's eyes as she faces her fate, or the brutal, visceral action of a desperate escape, Fiumara's art is a torrent of emotion. The world itself is rendered with a dark, almost painterly quality, perfectly capturing the oppressive beauty of the gods' gilded prison and the terrifying wilderness beyond. It's an art style that doesn't just illustrate the story, it feels the story, pulling you into the tragic depths. The Sacrificers is a modern masterpiece, a story that is as intellectually stimulating as it is emotionally devastating. Number 7, Lost Fantasy. What happens when you trade the dusty kingdoms of high fantasy for the grimy, broken streets of modern America? You get Lost Fantasy, a phenomenal new series from writer Kurt Pierres and artist Luca Casalegüeda that defines genre fusion. Pierres takes the hellishly difficult challenge of blending the genres of high fantasy and hard-boiled crime and succeeds spectacularly. The core concept is pure sci-fi fantasy, a world of magical trolls and monsters beneath exist stars threatening to break through. But Pierres grounds the narrative in a classic crime procedural elements. Our protagonist is far from a noble elf. He's a reluctant, rough-around-the-edges investigator, a magical detective. The beginning of the run is structured like a detective story, tracking a mysterious mass killing in Montana. Pierre's infuses the dialogue with gritty, cynical tones of hard-boiled noir, making the protagonist feel more like a burned-out private eye than a prince. This blend, a high-stakes quest for an artifact mixed with a street-level monster investigation, gives Lost Fantasy a uniquely thrilling identity that feels like East of West meets Something is Killing the Children. The genius of this genre blend relies entirely on the visuals, and artist Luca Casalegüeda provides a perfect, loose, sketchy artwork that captures the dark tone. Casalegüeda uses a deliberately rough and aggressive line that mirrors the grimness of the crime genre, making the world feel gritty and dangerous. Unlike the clean lines of typical fantasy, his sketchy aesthetic brings a palpable sense of texture to the page. You can practically feel the grime on Henry's couch or the damp air around a crime scene. When the fantasy elements burst through, that visual texture makes the magical creatures and Henry's massive sword feel jarring and out of place, enhancing the narrative texture. Casalegüeda's work ensures that whether you're looking for a detective investigating a murder or a monster hunting in battle, the story always retains its hard-boiled, slightly chaotic energy. Lost Fantasy is an explosive debut that hooks you instantly with its high-concept world and keeps you reading with its ground-level detective work. Number 6. Spectrum. If you want a comic that is pure, unbridled creative energy, a book that feels like the ultimate concept album exploded onto the page, then you need to pick up Spectrum. This genre-bending, reality-warping masterpiece from writer Rick Quinn and artist Dave Chisholm is one of 2025's most unique releases. Spectrum isn't just a comic about music, it uses the very concept of creativity and sound as its core storytelling mechanism. The story follows Melody Parker, a young woman in Seattle who sees the world as a psychedelic, shifting reality. This isn't just a stylistic flourish, it's the narrative engine. Melody's hallucinations, seeing androids, elemental beings that manipulate reality with music, and pigs in high fashion, are actually her unique perception piercing the veil of the mundane. The comic's plot is a kaleidoscope journey through time and memory, where past lives of musicians and artists influence the cosmic war taking place in the realm of sound. As Melody is drawn into a conflict that threatens the world's very symphony, the story structure itself becomes fractured, mirroring the dissonance of the harmony of music. It demands the readers engage their imagination, making your confusion as important to the experience as your understanding. It's a brilliant way to convey the subjective, transcendent power of art. To translate that mind-bending narrative, you need an artist operating with peak visual intensity, and that's Dave Chisholm. Chisholm's artwork is the absolute soul of Spectrum. He doesn't just stick to one style. He utilizes an incredible array of tools, from digital renders to what looks like hand-drawn colored pencils or watercolor effects, to visually signify the shifting realities. His lines are often frenetic yet expressive, capturing the chaos and energy of the 1999 setting. When the narrative jumps through time that enters a moment of musical transcendence, Chisholm delivers incredible splash pages that feel like arcane concept album covers. These pages are massive, meticulously detailed moments that merge abstract concepts with physical reality, providing powerful visual anchors in a narrative kaleidoscope of chaos. The overall effect is a comic that looks like nothing else on stands. Spectrum is a must-have for anyone seeking an idiosyncratic and unconventional comic experience. Number 5. Assorted Crisis Events. If you feel like the world is constantly in crisis, a never-ending series of terrifying, absurd, and unprecedented events, then this is the book for you. Assorted Crisis Events is a perfect dizzying allegory for modern life brought to you by the Powerhouse team anchored by two creative breakout stars. Writer Dennis Camp has emerged as one of the sharpest, most cerebral voices in comics. What makes this anthology series so brilliant is his ability to craft individual, poignant, single-issue stories within a vast sci-fi framework. The central premise, that time itself is broken, could easily be a massive, impersonal event series. Instead, Camp grounds every issue in the utterly human experience of people, just trying to hold down a job, mourn a parent, or get on the 315 bus, even while medieval knights or future soldiers are mingling in the streets. This narrative approach is poignant because the external crisis event becomes the perfect metaphor for internal struggles. Whether it's characters aging 5 years in a single dream or dealing with the time lost versions of their parents, Camp keeps the focus small and emotionally truthful. He's exploring existential dread, but always through the lens of one person's fractured sanity, delivering a profound, holistic reading experience that few ongoing comics can match. Matching Camp's complex architectural scripts is the breakout work of artist Eric Zawadzki. Assorted Crisis Events is the perfect vehicle to highlight his unique talents. Zawadzki's style is often dense and meticulously composed, utilizing tight-paneled pages that sometimes slip into unconventional, dizzying layouts. He works like an architect or an engineer, always focused on the sequential storytelling to manipulate the reader's perception. In a world where reality is constantly shifting and blending, Zawadzki uses every tool in the comic language, often in collaboration with the legendary colorist Jordi Belair, to make the mundane feel chaotic and the fantastical feel strangely mundane. The constant switching between full-color foreground characters and the gray, washed-out backgrounds of a time-broken world visually reinforce the emotional detachment we all feel and face with the non-stop doom scrolling. Zawadzki isn't just drawing a story, he's designing a deeply empathetic reading experience. Assorted Crisis Events is a powerful, smart, and emotionally fraught work that perfectly captures the anxiety of the 21st century. Number 4, Daredevil, Cold Day in Hell. If you're compiling a list of 2025's best, you have to talk about the book that delivers the definitive end-of-the-line story for the man without fear. We're talking about Daredevil, A Cold Day in Hell, a dark, brutal, and stunning vision of the future that proves a great hero's most compelling fight is often his last. The writer, Charles Soule, is no stranger to Hell's Kitchen. His prior run on Daredevil was solid, dealing with Matt Murdock's secret identity becoming public and then erased. But Cold Day in Hell is a whole new level. This isn't just a sequel, this is a quantum leap of the character. Soule takes the old man trope and immediately gives it gravity. He strips Matt down, aging him, taking his powers, and leaving him as a blind man running a soup kitchen. This move makes the story instantly better than his previous work by placing Matt in a raw, philosophical battle against despair. When the radioactive gas restores his power, it's not a celebration, it's a sensory assault, a horrific, painful burden that forces an old man back into a war he thought he'd escaped. Soule's script is lean, grim, and perfectly paced, asking, when you've lost everything, what is the core of your faith and heroism? The answer is pure Daredevil. And lending weight to every gritty, snow-choked frame is the incredible art of Steve McNiven. McNiven is known for his cinematic blockbusters like Civil War and Old Man Logan, but here he consciously pivots, channeling distinct expressionistic aesthetics of Frank Miller and Lynn Varley. Specifically, McNiven's moody and atmospheric panels are a direct, loving homage to Elektra Lives Again, where that 1990 classic used a haunting, painted style to depict a psychological desolation and ghost figures. McNiven uses his own highly detailed, intense realism, coupled with heavy shadows and muted, cold colors to create a similar sense of isolation and decay. He brings that Elektra Lives Again feeling, a dreamlike, somber quality to the brutal reality of a broken New York. The close-ups on the grotesque bullseye and the weary exhaustion etched into Matt Murdock's face are masterful. It's a synthesis of cinematic action and painterly melancholy, and it looks phenomenal. Daredevil Cold Day in Hell is an unforgettable comic. It's Charles Soule at his best, diving deep into the spiritual conflicts of Matt Murdock, and it's Steve McNiven delivering art that manages to be both epic and deeply introspective, standing shoulder to shoulder with the great works of Miller and Varley. Number 3, Kaya. Next up on our list is not only the 9-panel grid top comic of 2024, but a book that proves that one creator can build a world as sweeping and visually inventive as any major comic universe. We're traversing the savage sci-fi fantasy landscape of Kaya. Writer and artist Wes Craig is a powerhouse, and in Kaya, he's using every tool in his arsenal. The first thing you notice is the page composition. Craig doesn't just draw panels, he designs the flow of the reader's eyes. He's a master at dynamic energy. Whether it's a terrifying beast hunting the siblings or a moment of quiet reflection, Craig uses slanted borders and overlapping panels and an angular layout to give this book a constantly charging kinetic feel. His action sequences are not only clear, but explode off the page, making the movement of Kaya's magical arm or the acrobatic feats of Jin feel incredibly visceral. He's building a world that feels both deeply ancient and impossibly futuristic, and his compositional choices are what tie that disparate aesthetic together, ensuring the reader is always thrust right into the heart of the adventure. But beneath that pulse-pounding action is a deeply emotional core, the relationship between half-siblings Kaya and Prince Jin. This journey was always about Kaya protecting Jin and delivering him to his destiny, but in this latest volume, that bond is put to its ultimate test. The splintering comes largely due to the character of Razel, whose own secrets and agendas act as the narrative fulcrum. Without giving away major spoilers, Razel's machinations force Kaya and Jin to confront the cruel truth behind the terrifying robot empire and the sacrifices required to fight it. Secrets and differing perspectives on morality, whether to run or fight, and what constitutes the necessary evil, drive a deep wedge between the siblings. Craig is masterful at showcasing how external pressure and Razel's influence force the brother and sister to make difficult, individual choices that threaten to tear their family unit apart, leaving you desperate to know if their love can survive the weight of the world they're fighting to save. Kaya is an incredible combination of stunning sequential art and powerful, character-driven family drama. Wes Craig delivers a compelling arc that cements this series as a must-read fantasy epic. Number 2, Resurrection Man, Quantum Karma. So let's talk about writer Ram V. If you're a fan of elegant, character-driven horror and fantasy, you know his name. But here he tackles Mitch Shelley, the Resurrection Man, a character known for dying and reviving with a new power set every single time. Shelley is a niche hero, a deep cut from DC's bench, and one that honestly I didn't have any history with. And that's exactly why this comic book sings. Ram V doesn't just write a superhero story, he writes a quantum horror epic that questions identity, consequence, and the nature of life itself. He crafts a story that is utterly human, weaving Mitch's perpetual struggle for purpose into a cosmic battle against the terrifying foe from his past. It's a masterclass in making a forgotten character suddenly feel like the most important person in the DC universe. But the emotion and the sheer scale of Ram V's script wouldn't land without the phenomenal visuals of Anand R.K. His art here is nothing short of beautiful. Anand's style is fluid, atmospheric, and utterly unique, blending the detailed draftsmanship of European comics with a lush, almost painterly approach. The way he renders Mitch Shelley's resurrections, each death and birth being a kaleidoscopic moment of existential horror and beauty, is breathtaking. When Ram V's script demands a journey through time and altered realities, Anand R.K. delivers a page that feels like they're dripping with mood, making the strange, complex plot visually accessible and powerfully moving. It's an artistic triumph that elevates this book from a great read to a genuinely unforgettable one. Resurrection Man Quantum Karma is exactly what mature readers should be looking for: bold, philosophical, and visually stunning. It cements Ram V as one of the best writers in the medium and showcases Anand R.K. as a true artistic powerhouse. And at number 1, The Power Fantasy. Our best comic of 2025 is the book that takes the superhero concept, looks at its vast cosmic power levels, and asks the chilling question: what happens when the only thing stopping Armageddon is an uneasy truce between 6 incredibly flawed people? That's exactly what you get with the Power Fantasy. Kieran Gillen is no stranger to the big two. He's had landmark runs on X-Men, Darth Vader, and the Eternals. But the Power Fantasy feels like the book he couldn't write at Marvel or DC. It's his bold approach at those power levels that make it shine. Here, the 6 central characters, the superpowers, each possess destructive forces equivalent to a nuclear arsenal. This isn't your standard hero versus villain slugfest where a major city gets smacked around but the consequences are erased by the next issue. Gillen injects a real, terrifying threat into the DNA of the narrative. A fight is a lose state for everyone. When one of these characters makes a world-altering moral choice, like the assassination of a president to prevent a bigger disaster, or confronting a character whose power comes straight from hell, the philosophical stakes are immediate, heavy, and permanent. This book is a genuine piece of speculative fiction, showing how these gods warp the entire political, moral, and historical timeline of Earth. It's Watchmen meets The Good Place, but with the existential dread dialed up to 10. But the complexity of Gillen's idea is grounded in the absolutely stunning visual of Caspar Wijngaard. Wijngaard is the primary artist and colorist, and his work here is simply unforgettable. His striking line work is clean, strong, and highly detailed, giving every character and environment a distinct lived-in feel. Crucially, though, it's his color palette that defines this book. Instead of the typical dark shadows of a superhero deconstruction, Wijngaard often uses a surprising and captivating pastel color palette, dusty purples, muted pinks, and the beautiful gradients. This choice, paired with world-ending powers with a soft, dreamlike aesthetic, is genius. It gives this series an aged, simply off-kilter vibe, perfectly reflecting the alternate cultural history it's exploring. Whether it's the beautiful, abstract backgrounds of a telepathic conversation, or the shift to a stark, sepia tone in a flashback to a past catastrophe, Caspar's visual storytelling makes the abstract, ethical debates feel vibrant and visceral. The power fantasy is the kind of bold, challenging comic that redefines a genre. Gillen dares to treat ultimate power with ultimate seriousness, and Caspar Wijngaard brings the heavy concept to life with mesmerizing style. If you want a book that proves superhero comics can still explore high-concept philosophy that interjects real stakes, the power fantasy belongs at the very top of your 2025 list. So there you have it. Superheroic nuclear deterrence, interdimensional creativity traversal, and heartfelt stories of dreamscape-faring families and everything in between. What were your favorite comics of 2025? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in 2026.